So I've just come up to the pond to do a little bit of clearing, and especially this ash looks a bit sad. Quite a lot of the bark was stripped and the leaves were dying. I was thinking, what on earth has done that? So I started chopping it back, and then I heard a really loud buzzing. Let me show you what I found. These are hornets. Now they're pretty docile, but I'm not going to hang around for too long. They're not like wasps that are known to really go for you. But when you start looking, this bush is actually covered in hornets, and they seem to be stripping the wood. I'm not sure whether that's maybe they're making a nest for their queen for winter or what. I need to look it up. I don't really know the lifespan or the life cycle, but it's just really cool. I can't believe the size of them. So the task of the past few days has been to try and bucket train these girls. I don't know why anybody doesn't bucket train and tries to wrangle sheep. It's so much easier if you can just shake a bucket and they can come. You can move them from pen to pen, you can move them from field to field. You can also get close, you can get them into the race if you need to catch them, if there's health issues. So one of the things I'm really persevering with is making sure these girls are all bucket trained, especially before they go out. So all I've been doing the past couple of mornings and evenings when I come in to feed them is just running them up and down this barn using the bucket. Two of them, so Coco and Candy are pretty good. Coco and Candy are pretty good. Cotton, who is this actually one I'm pointing to there, she is not so great because she's not really bonded with the other two. Once they become a proper flock, it will be a lot easier to move all of them at once. Good girl. Good girl. Come on. Come on. Come on. Good girls. Come on. Come in. Let's go. Come on. Okay. Come on. Come on. Oh, I've lost them. Come on. They're already getting a lot tamer though. Coco was always pretty easy. She would let me scratch her head. Candy is this one here. She wasn't as friendly, but she's starting to let me touch her. She doesn't really like it, but she doesn't mind so much. And Cotton is still a little bit wary. She's a nice girl, and she'll sniff. Hello. But I don't think Cotton's going to allow any cuddles anytime soon. So the plan with these three in the next few days is to get them out of the barn and onto pasture. And then we've got these boys. So we've been training with the goats and we've been tethering them out. They are going to continue to be tethered, and also I may shove them in with the ewe lambs. I just need to see. Sheep are very good with electric netting, goats not so much, because if the goats poke their head through, as goats do, and then they get stuck, they're going to get wrapped up in zappy electric netting, which isn't ideal. So we're going to test those. So the goats we're tethering, and then these two rams. So we've got a little Capulet here, and we have our beautiful Montague, not you, Monty, who's lovely. Are you sniffing? They are going to grow up to be really big rams. So they're staying in here for a bit longer to be fed up on sheep nuts and things for the following spring. And I also need to put up some proper fencing for them because I don't want Mr. Ram Lambs busting through electric fencing and going and making premature babies with these guys. Hello. So, who's coming out? I think it's going to have to be, you need to get down to start with, so I can open the gate. Can you get down? Thank you. Right, it's not being in. It's going to be okay, it's going to be all good. And it's going to be you. Come on. Come on. No. Not James. Not Phil. And cat. Not cat. Very good. Good boy. You're spinning it everywhere. Okay, greedy grubs. Come on, let's go. Come on. So I've actually been super lucky when it comes to tethering because these boys are so friendly. As you saw just then, I can just run them out without the harnesses or halters on. I can just run them out to the field with a bucket and then I can tether them. The other thing is, because they're small, they can't pull the tethers out of the ground. I have no doubt that when they are fully grown, they weren't used to tethering, they would just rip all of this tether just straight out of the ground and they'd be off. Because they're smaller, I can train them now and get them used to it, which is a big, big bonus. So if you're thinking about tethering, you need to do so quite carefully because it does take a lot more management. You can't just stick them in a field and tether them up. You need to be there in case something goes wrong. Remember, tethers are long leads and they are around their necks. They are clipped to collars around their necks. And so you have to be there in case something goes wrong. They get wrapped up, they get caught in some brambles or something. So at the moment, I tether them out for a half hour, hour max, and then I put them back in, just so they're used to coming in and out. I would never go off site and leave them out tethered because you don't know what's going to happen. So if you are thinking about tethering, that is something you need to think about. How realistic is it for you to be on site all the time? If you're not going to be around enough, then you need to think about maybe paddocking them instead. The other thing that's really important is the kind of tether. So when I first started looking at possible tethering systems, I thought actually a retractable dog lead basically would work really, really well. And this is just a very normal tethering stake. So you could buy these retractable dog leads, or you could buy the more common tethers, which are the metal pieces of string that are covered in plastic. So I bought two of the retractable and one of the metal. I can now clearly tell you that the retractable do not work. if you look at this picture, you can see Ulysses and Gergie are on a retractable. It's not retracting at all. It's all caught up. And because it's really light material, it just gets tangled so easily. Whereas the metal and plastic covered chain is heavier and it kind of just stays on the ground, so it doesn't tangle up as easier. So I would definitely recommend that don't get a lightweight retractable one, because you're going to always be having to check your goats and untangle legs and untangle tethers. Whereas these are not only cheaper, but they're a lot easier to use. Do you want to go back indoors? You're a bit of a wuss, aren't you, Gergie? Beautiful, but a bit of a wuss. Gergie is definitely a fair weather goat. Humbug doesn't mind being out so much, but it starts to get a little bit antsy after about 2 hours. Ulysses, however, does not care less and is quite happy. The other two, Venom and Angus. Angus is very much like Ulysses over there, doesn't give two hoots about being out, is happy being out and doesn't bleat. Venom wants to be with his little buddies. So I'm going to have to buy a couple more, and I think putting them all out together will chill them out a little bit maybe? But we'll see. I expect this one is still going to whinge, aren't you? Going to be a whingy one. You're going to have to get used to it, mate. You are. Well, it's actually been a couple of days since I videoed the tethering with the goats and the sheep, so I've got something to show you. My ladies are out. They're loving it. So, Coco, Cotton, Candy, they've actually been really respectful of the fencing. We had a little faux pas initially. I brought them in. Cotton literally has no netting sense at all. Walked straight into it, got it caught around her horns, ripped the entire fence post out. The tether post I still haven't found. It flew off somewhere and they shot across here, and then Cotton ran straight into the poultry electric fencing and shocked herself even more, and they shot off all the way down there. So I had to basically go and grab them and haul them back by their horns because they didn't want to come near the fencing. But since then we have had luck, and they've stayed in, they've been good, and I think they've realised now that the netting is to keep them in, and they have all this grass. They'll only be in here for 2 or 3 days and then we'll move them on. And I just can't wait to get the pasture system going. Since I've seen the pasture system going really well with the chickens, I just really want to get it going with the lovely ladies. I just found the tether. I literally just said I hadn't found it, and look where it is. It's right down here. So it's come all the way from that corner, and they flicked it that hard, it landed down here. Blimey. We better go and put it back on then. You can see the fencing is sagging a little bit where it's been off. Not that it really affects the sheep, but it's been a bit of a pain. I was also just sat on Facebook Marketplace and this fencing was being sold off, so I actually managed to buy 3 50-metre lengths, so 150 for 100 quid. So I've got one over the hedge for the market garden. I've got this one, and then I'm using the third one rather, to set up the next area where they're going to go to, because I thought it would just be so much easier to have the pen they're in, set up the fencing for the next one, and then just run them across, rather than try to kind of corral them into a corner, move the fencing while they're in there, call them back. So I think I'm going to strip graze them down the length this way and then back up. So they'll be in here for a few days. I just want to see how quickly they eat the grass. Probably only 2 or 3 days, because I don't want them grazing the grass really low. I want to keep it fairly substantial, and then I'll move them in this section. And then once they're in this section, I'll take this down and I'll move it to the next bit. And now look, we even have a rainbow. So we have found the tethering. We have a rainbow. And the sheep are standing in the sun. I think that is the perfect end. Rainbows, sheep, and being outside. What more could you want? So thank you very much for watching the video. As always, if you've got questions or comments about tethering out and bucket training and things, please just ask in the comments below. If you're on Facebook, come across and join us at Brimwood Farm's community group. If you've liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. But for now, I shall say goodbye and take care. Bye-bye.